Hello, everyone. It's Irlianna Samsara. Yay! Here we are again. StarSound Speaks, StarSound Astrology. So, wow! I just want to. What a week, right? Ay ay ay. Yeah. Well, welcome to the Saturn square Uranus. This is going to be as we have said in the previous episode. This is going to be the defining theme for 2021. The astrology that's happening. I want to get more deeply into this particular segment. We're going to just focus more on the astrology of just this month of January, because there's a lot that's going on. Things are gonna. Hold on to your hat. It's a wild ride out there. Right now I'm thinking of that, like the mechanical bull, those things that people ride in bars, that go up and down. So we saw a very intense example of that a few days ago, with the Capitol riots. Unfortunately, it was tragic. I think as of now, I think 5 people have died. So yeah, that's very sad. There's so much I could say about that, but I think we just want to stay in the highest here and look at the big picture, but also just for the month of January in terms of this huge societal shift. Obviously, what it can mean politically, but also just in our own lives. Where are we? Where are these forces of change occurring for us? And how can we best use these, and what do we look out for? So that's what I'm always here is to empower us. We want to look at things in and not feel like it's not like we have no freedom to choose, even though these are intense transits. They're not the transits of last year, but that doesn't mean I'm not glossing over and saying, oh, everything's this new beginning, and it is a new beginning. But with that Saturn Uranus square going on for 2021, now February, June, and at the end of the year, it'll peak. So we'll get to revisit this, and each time we revisit it, it'll have a different signature energy to it, because of the other planets. But this month we have Mars there, so that's Mars is that instigator that's churning things up. So if you think about the DC riots and insurrection as a kind of bellwether, we saw, it was interesting. Mars has finally left Aries. It's been there since June of last year, and it finally left the sign of Aries and went into Taurus. It's called an ingress. So it's at 0 degrees of Taurus right now. Well, Mars in its home sign of Aries, obviously it has the potential, and it certainly did succeed in many areas of wrecking things. It's the planet of war and aggression. However, it also has the planet to begin. It's that whole thing about it's a cardinal. It's ruled by Aries. Mars energy is leading the way and starting over and moving forward. And so it's been a very interesting, maybe the most challenging Mars transit we might ever see, because of the fact last year it not only charged through Aries, but it was squaring the Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto when they were all in Capricorn. So it was the individual taking on the state. And of course, we saw that very much so with Black Lives Matter, and also all the Trump people, and contesting the election results of the presidential election, and Biden winning, and there were many examples of that in the collective. But it was definitely about finding a new way, and when it went retrograde, it's like pivoting and looking and being able to pivot and step back and go, wow, what's the direction I want to take with my will? What's the direction I want to take with my drive? And then it reached the 29th and final degree, which is called an anaretic degree. or a karmic degree. The 29th degree of any sign is called a karmic or anaretic degree, and that's when the energy is expressed. It's just full blown, right? So Mars in Aries at the 29th degree, of course you're going to see conflict, aggression. It's unfortunate. That's the hard side of Mars. The upside being passion and drive and ambition. It's just that we have to to use that energy most wisely. It's about checking our ego at the door. Unfortunately, what happened in Washington this week was people did not check their ego at the door, and they went crazy. And so storming the Capitol, killing people, lives lost, injuries, huge damage. Of course, in the people who were doing that were, in their view of things, it was the right thing to do, and standing up against the man, and the people who keeping everyone back. But in their view of things, and clashing with the status quo. Well, that was it was an interesting observation, because I was watching carefully the timeline of that when I was watching on CNN, when we saw these people climbing the walls and running amok through the halls of the photographs later, running amok through the halls of the Capitol building, and I remember for the couple of hours, it was like around 3 o'clock or so when that happened, and I remember thinking, God, this is crazy. It's like, the news reports were like the Capitol Police didn't even, they didn't know what to do. There were hundreds or thousands of people, depending on whatever news report, that were converged on the Capitol Police, and they were like overwhelmed, and they stormed the gates. And, to me, it was like a mob scene, like right out of the Bastille, and of course, broke windows and trashed the place. And the Capitol Police were, overwhelmed. And of course, as we all know, the lawmakers were in session, doing the ceremonial election certification, and they, had to take cover. But at that moment, that's when Mars was at the 29th degree and almost 59, minutes, right? Ticking down to the micro measurement of the final moments in the sign of Aries. And it's interesting, because I remember looking at that going, wow, why aren't they moving yet? It's like they kept pushing and pushing, and why isn't the Capitol Police, why aren't they pushing back? It was all this aggression. And it just seemed that there was so much of it was being allowed. I'm not saying this in a criticism, but it was certainly something that we are observing. And anyway, but as soon as it was around 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, as soon as Mars went into the 0 degrees of Taurus, that's when the energy shifted. That's when they were, okay, move along. And then the crowd started to recede. So that, interesting, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Venus wants peace and harmony and, comfort, security, that kind of thing. So the aggression was tempered with this overlay of Venus energy. So it's like, okay, move along. And they finally got to get the peace, and put up barricades and, called a curfew, and everything shifted right at that moment. And the defining picture, live coverage of Mars at the 29th degree, you might have seen it in the news. It was that guy that had his face painted red, white, and blue. He looked like, something out of like Mel Gibson in Braveheart, but he had the colors of the American flag on his face. And then he had the Viking helmet, the big horns. It was the bull, steer horns. So very apropos, right? Aggression into wearing this bullish, the Taurus, and there it was. But he don't know if he lost his job, but I know a lot of these people have been identified on the internet, and they've been fired from their jobs for committing, this insurrection and, damage federal property, all that stuff. But it was definitely a telling image, and you can watch carefully when planets change signs, because you'll see it, you'll see it out there in the collective, and that was probably the best example. And there was they were taking pictures of themselves, selfies, in the Senate and House chamber, and sitting on the chair, and the whole thing. So yeah, so it was interesting in that moment to watch that progression. But anyway, I want to just move on from that, and let's go see. Okay, yeah, let's go see what we got else for this month. So I'll just say overall, it's still pretty hairy. In terms of of course, we have the inauguration in the middle of this really intense energy. Why is that? Because Jupiter squaring Uranus, which is going to take place in about 9 days, January 17th. It's from now through the 17th of the month. We're having this Jupiter square Uranus. So there's this opportunity for more, zealotry. If you're thinking about like the insurrectionists and all the writers, that Jupiter can be like, off the charts, this righteousness and zealousness and, kind of feeling of entitlement and righteousness and superiority, those are all the shadow parts of Jupiter, and this squaring off with Uranus. So that could bring, isolation, or, a polarization, and very reckless behavior. Recklessness, and maybe a pressure to conform, to the group, like, hey, come on, do what we're doing, and so those are shadow elements we want to look out for. So depending on where this is occurring in your chart, in your own personal life, Jupiter square Uranus, we want to check our sense of entitlement and being bossy know-it-alls, and so that's squaring off with the need to be free. And Uranus, of course, is in that, the rebel, the one who wants freedom and independence and self-realization. So, how best to use those energies? Well, the Jupiter on the bright side would be, a confidence and enthusiasm, and a confidence and seeking truth and all, and squaring off with Uranus. How do I find my truth, and how can I use my intuition and, even I would say prophetic abilities, that's very much Jupiter aligned, to discern, you could say, and this is getting out of politics, because I do want to talk about Uranus. It's going to be stationing direct next week. But, this could be a very dramatic moment for self-realization when Jupiter squares Uranus. A lot of the talk has been, obviously having this tragedy occur with such in Washington, will things like that continue? Yeah, it's still going to get hairy. I'm just praying for a very peaceful transfer of power. Hopefully, people have retreated into that from that zealous state. But these energies of darkness and division, they do not go lightly into the night, and that's what we're seeing this month, with Mars in the mix, stirring things up and agitating. So we have to just be really mindful of that and staying centered in the midst of this some very chaotic times. So anyway, so that's Jupiter will square Uranus on the 17th. And so what the positive side of that would be, what are the good qualities of Uranus? Well, that's the liberation, that you could say Kundalini rising, the light body activation, coming from the future, creating paradigm shifts, and being ingenious and forward thinking and visionary thinking, rebelling, not for like rebel without a cause, reckless rebel, that would be shadow, but somebody who's breaking down old patterns of things that have held us back and have divided us. So it seeks humanitarian unity consciousness, so how do we meet our enthusiasm for that, and how do we work that out? The square is like demanding that we address these elements and come to a very fruitful place. This is a potential where light can occur, being discovering the future, discovering the unknown, and where does that meet with our truth. Breaking from the past, you could say, breaking out of old, the old boxes. So, well, that was cool. This is got a lot of great potential, and it's, thank goodness. Yes, it's going to be. I have to say, it's going to be pretty rough and bumpy there, especially when we get to around, with Mars squaring these big outer planets, Jupiter. It's going to conjunct Uranus. Boy, talk about kicking up stuff, right? And squaring Jupiter and Saturn. So there's definitely a big shift, a societal shift that we're going to see out there. This is hopefully it's the end of the violence, but it's definitely this stirring. It's not settled yet. So hang on to your hats. Fortunately, the good news, though, is that with Mars being in the sign of Taurus now, finally, right? It's taken 6 months from from last June, because it stopped and then it went backward in. It was in September, from September 10th or so to November 13th. It moved backward, and then forward again. So we had 6 months in the sign of Aries. So that was definitely giving us, where it was calling us to check our egos in service of something bigger, of taking care of ourselves on a macrocosmic level, looking at our willpower and will that serve something bigger, and what kind of legacy do we want to leave. So now that we've examined that with Mars and Aries, and we've got whatever, garnished, whatever wisdom we've garnished from that, now we can take those insights and move them forward and with peace and grace. Venus is about, Venus wants peace and grace and connection. So combative Mars is, the muscle guy, right? He wants to flex his muscles and, tough guy. But Venus, with Mars in that sign of Venus ruled Taurus, is almost like an overlay. You could say it has like a divine feminine overlay. So I'm thinking of like, Glenda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. She's this beautiful, gracious, because Venus, actually, the ruling planet of Mars and Taurus, she's entered Capricorn today. So she'll be there for the next few weeks. And there's a very dignified presence of grace, right, in the sign of Capricorn. So there's like grace and dignity and decency, doing the right thing, and making its ambition with grace, getting things done and meeting one's goals and achievements with grace and peace. So, right, at least we got that working for us. We're gonna need it. So here's, Glenda the Good Witch, like, if you can imagine people, duking it out, but then there's this overlay of like Glenda energy. You remember how she had the big white puffy dress, with the wand, the sparkly wand, and she was so kind. She didn't diss anybody. She was just very gracious. Even though the Wicked Witch was, giving her a hard time, she was like, settle down. And so, think of that Glenda energy of like permeating what's going to happen for the next, several weeks. And overlaying, I would say, to I would like us to all focus on those energies as we work out some very difficult situations and turning points, that we remember this divine grace overlay, and so to be mindful of that as we move forward. So if we meet with hostility, or if we check our hostility at the door of our ego-driven reactiveness, if we find ourselves being impatient and rude, again, just that it'll provide that natural check and balance. So will Saturn, when when this Mars squaring Saturn, we'll have the desire to move forward. It'll be like, that one step forward, two steps back, that kind of thing. Like we'll feel like the brakes, like the gas pedal and the brake, with Saturn being, okay, let's be wise, let's manage this. Yeah, Saturn wants good stuff for us. That'll be a good lasting. Saturn and Aquarius, let's build a visionary community that lasts. But let's be wise about it. Right? So Saturn is about wisdom and maturity. So yes, be strong, be courageous, be powerful, all those Mars qualities, but let's be wise. Let's be wise as we manage that, as we manage this revolution in thought and in ideas. So yeah, so there's that. And, here's one place where I think it might play out. I understand that Pence, as of this moment, Pence, they've asked Pence, but I don't think he's agreed yet. Would you step in for Trump, since he chose not to go to the inauguration, which is probably the first time in history. An outgoing president, has not, he was forced to give that video about, condemning the rioters. And obviously there's Venus and Capricorn, right? Play nice, do the right thing, go and apologize and, clean it up. But anyway, Pence might take over and stand in for him as the peaceful transfer of power, when Biden takes the oath. And that would be very nice. I have a feeling that will occur because, he's obviously broke rank with, and so did Betsy DeVos and other members of his cabinet. They've all broken rank at this point. It's just, it just went completely bonkers. So I feel that as a saving grace, he could step in and do that. It would be a very Venus and Capricorn thing to have this, do the right thing kind of energy. And again, looking at our own lives, where is it that we need to do that, to stand up and do things again, in the interest of peace. And it's that conflict with wanting to get something done, but also needing to do the right thing. So it's like, it's an energy that we're working out this month. For the rest of the month. So, that I would say that could very well happen. Let me see my little notes here. So Wednesday is a new moon, and it's the first new moon we have it's going to be the first new moon since we have Jupiter and Saturn in air signs in our 200-year, every 200-year cycle of going into a new element. So that's exciting. And, we've also got on the 14th, Uranus will go direct in the sign of Taurus. So again, a lot of action. Oh, excuse me. I have Toby here, by the way. That was a here. Look, here's Toby. Yes. Okay. You want to say hello? Toby makes her YouTube. Yes, baby. I know. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, it's yes. The Leos. I want attention. Do you think? Anyway, this Toby. Okay, no, mommy's working. Mommy's working. Okay, yes, like I said, mommy's working. No, so okay, who's in charge here? All right, so anyway, the new moon is that's coming. That should bring that's all manner of new possibility. New moon in Capricorn. I'm gonna pull that up here. Let's see where that is. Let's see. Yeah, so the new moon is going to be on the, oh wait, sorry, I have this at the wrong one, 14 today. I have to just pull up this, here we are. The new moon for Washington, D.C. is going to be the sun and the moon are in the 4th house of home in Capricorn. So, and it's, and is Pluto conjunct? Yes, sun and moon at 23 degrees of Capricorn. Pluto's at 24. So you talk about reinventing. This is a whole purging, a whole rebirth of our society. That's going to be really cool. This is a whole new beginning for our country. It's certainly for all society. Capricorn. It's not just the USA. but this reinvention, arising out of the toxicity and birthing something new. So that's going to be happening, Sun, Moon, Pluto, and in all conjunct, right? So this is a powerful, purgative kind of energy. I will say too that Venus is at the 5 degree, it's conjunct Venus, the planet Venus is 5 degrees of Capricorn. Well, the eclipse of December of 2019, right? So it's a little over a year ago. Venus is activating. Now, normally we don't look at Venus activating eclipse. It's really Mars that we look at. And Venus there is, I remember when Venus activated the eclipse last summer, the Cancer eclipse, there was an evacuation at Mont Blanc. They thought that maybe the glacier would melt, and they had to evacuate the town in the Mont Blanc area in France. And there was some flooding and things in other parts of the world. But I remember everybody got out safely. So again, Venus has that kind of saving grace aspect. Like, yes, it was change, but it was a peaceful energy around that. So I'm just saying that, and how I interpret that, what comes to mind when I think about that is, maybe that not only Pence attending the inauguration, but it could be that they get an impeachment, going, and as they're trying to do right now, and maybe that will happen, and maybe Trump might be removed from office, as a result of that. So, and that's only next week, right? We're on top of the inauguration. They're already building the stands and the viewing stands and whatever all the prep work. So this is very, very, very last minute. But it did remind me of the eclipse, the Bernadette Brady's description of that family of eclipses, and that the December 4th, 2019 eclipse was very much, the December 26th eclipse of 2019 at 4 degrees of Capricorn. So Venus is at 5, so it's going to, activate that, as I said. But that Bernadette had written that this family of eclipses brings with it the sudden endings of associations or of a relationship. And there's a large emotional component as Pluto is involved, and a sense of traumatic transformation. So yes, obviously, given what's happened, I could, that could very well be the case here, where he could be unceremoniously and removed, and then Pence can stand in for the inaugural ceremony. So here are these energies at work. Anyway, so that's that, the new moon. So January 17th is Jupiter and Saturn are mixing it up, squaring Mars Uranus conjunct. So that's really intense. So basically from the 17th to the 23rd, right? So the inauguration's happening in that window. That's very much stirred up energy, a lot of agitation. So again, be careful, we want to look in our own lives about how do we meet these challenges? What choices are we making that can, to meet this agitation? Who are we in the face of chaos and extreme behavior? Are we going to be caught up in that extreme behavior, or can we step back and, see it for what it is? This is part of our evolution. Difficult situations build character in us. So we don't have to be caught up with that, kind of a mob mentality. We have enough in the collective now where we can step back and look at that on a more, even, rational place and make decisions from there. It's really, I would say, required of us. And I know that with when we are faced with adversity and we work through that, anytime we encounter adversity, physiologically, we actually build more synapses in the brain, the little pathways that unite left and right brain hemispheres. And so it's interesting to think about that. Like, most of us, we're wired for comfort, and we don't want to experience, who wants to experience discomfort and challenge? No, we don't. But when we do, it's like the polish, like the diamond is getting polished. So yes, it's rough. Yes, there's contact and pressure and this kind of friction, but friction, and what is that saying? Pressure creates diamonds, and it builds our character. So I hope that we can all use this as an opportunity for what's going to happen through the rest of the month, that these in our own lives, where we can use this as an opportunity to grow and to use this with grace, and all the tools that we have, our Kundalini, yoga, pranayam, chant, these are very powerful places. Taurus rules the neck, right? The neck and the jaw. I mean, you think about Uranus being in the sign of Taurus, it's like, wow, the neck, what's that? The vocal cords, right? And Uranus, this self-realization, right? So self-realization through this part of the body, wow, we could use chant and mantra and breath. Hugely powerful. North Node in Gemini. Gemini rules the lungs and the esophagus. So, where do we want to push? What's a powerful direction to move in? Engaging this, using these parts of the body in the highest way. Well, chant and whatever, whether it's a Native American chant or Sanskrit or Hebrew or, whatever, Sufi song, any and all religion, Buddhism, it doesn't matter, whatever it calls to your heart. This would be a really powerful time to keep practicing and keep sharpening ourselves and building character through these sacred practices. So there's that. I know the new moon is not until the 13th, but so between now and the new moon is actually a good time, speaking of the physical body, to be fasting. As the moon wanes from the full moon to the new moon, the moon is in a, the light is declining, and that's always the best time to do a fast. It's easier to do a fast. You'll find, I have found, I tend to whiz through them. It's because the body, everything is in release mode. So this is a good, where you're cleaning out. So, green juice fasting or green juice feasting, as I like to call it. That's always a good thing. Whatever way you fast, water, lemon water, plain water, juicing. You could do, if you don't do a food fast, you could do a speech fast or a word fast or a music or, television. If you watch too much TV, you could do a TV fast. There's many ways we can fast. So speech or news fast. Oh my God, a cell phone fast. Oh my God, wouldn't that be hard? It's like, give me the juice. I can't lose my iPhone. No, right? Watch your language and your thoughts in your head. So anyway, fasting, always a great thing to do. Very much easier to do. If you're going to start it, you might as well start it, in the waning moon, and it'll give you encouragement to, keep going. So let's see. Let's see what else I got. Oh, yes. Okay, Uranus. Yeah, I want to talk about this because out in the collective, we can be overwhelmed with, and it's important, of course, the inauguration and everything that's happened and, what we're dealing with right now and the pandemic and, all of that. But I don't want to overstep the fact that Uranus going direct in the sign of Taurus at 6 degrees, 36 minutes. And that is conjunct or lined up with the South Node in Aquarius of the USA. And so I wonder about technology and the future. And as I've said before, when it went retrograde in August, and now that it's at the stationary degree again, we heard a lot of talk about UFOs, ETs and things. And you might have heard about that. Looked like a big blue ship of light in Oahu. Thousands and thousands of people saw this in Oahu last week. and it was this huge, you know, kind of electric blue light from what I saw in the pictures, and it zoom, disappeared into the ocean. And many people called the FAA and said, hey, you know, what's going on? And was there an aircraft down, or, you know, and they looked in their records, and there was no activity of you know, any plane and anything, you know, out of the ordinary. So unexplained. Fascinating, of course. You know, we look at those beginning and exiting points of a retrograde, especially with Uranus, and to see, you know, something of that nature. So the chart for its stationing direct for Washington, D.C., I'm just looking at it now. It gives us some clues. Neptune, which of course rules, you know, the outer worlds, the higher non-physical realities, is in its home sign of Pisces, you know, which has been for many years, and it's making a square and actively engaging the North and the South node in Gemini and Sag. So talk about, you know, otherworldly contacts to evolve our consciousness. You know, this is a very juicy possibility here. Uranus and Venus are in a nice trine with your, you know, Venus and Capricorn and Uranus and Taurus. So it's like, hey, and Uranus is conjunct Mars, you know, because again, this is a very spicy month. This is one very spicy meatball in the chart of the United States. Of Washington, D.C., it's appearing in the 6th house. I use whole sign houses. And so Mars conjunct Uranus in the 6th could be, ooh, I went off to work one day and I'm in my little, you know, went to my carpentry job, and budging, I just see some, you know, spaceship land on the Earth, or something like that, something otherworldly. So expect the unexpected in daily life in America. Maybe it's, remember when Obama got inaugurated, the first inauguration in 2008? I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was on CNN, they had the cameras, you know, on the steps of the Capitol, right? The whole swearing in ceremony. And then some of the cameras, another camera angle was looking at the crowd, right? And you know, where with the Washington Monument in the distance, and all of a sudden, boom, there was this blur. Do you remember that, across the top of the screen? And even the commentator said, "Hey, whoa, what was that? Woo!" You know, there's something flew by, and it made the news a day or so later that you know, there's these unidentified object. It wasn't the Air Force planes with the, you know, the salute, you know, the normal, what are those? They do those amazing, you know, synchronistic, you know, the fighter jets all doing this wonderful salute. It wasn't that. It was, it was something way faster and ping, right in and out. And so you can go back, and if you Google it, I'm sure you can pull it up, you know, UFO, Obama inauguration, whatever. You can see the video of that. So I'm wondering, you know, maybe in the midst of all this chaos, we might get another visit. Maybe they'll be telling us, you know, behave, right? You know, Venus and Capricorn, let's be nice as we shift our paradigm of reality. We don't have to be nasty with each other. We could be civil. Let's get along. But you can imagine. Can you imagine just some, like, you know, crazy, like, Proud Boy, you know, like trying to cause trouble, and all of a sudden some, you know, spaceship. I mean, you know, like I said, January is a wild month, you know, so who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But I just want to put that out there, because with Neptune squaring the nodes, whoa, that's fascinating to me. And Sun and Pluto on that day and at that hour where Uranus goes direct is exactly at 24 degrees of Capricorn, within 14 minutes of each other. So that's an extremely tight conjunction. Talk about a purgative, purging one's reality base within ourselves and in society, in the collective at large. So, and that's, you know, offers enormous amount of opportunity for reprogramming, you know, reprogramming consciousness. So just saying. Now, I have to say too that with all the tumultuousness and this explosive revolutionary kind of energy, revolution from within, revolution from without, this month we could also be seeing earth changes. You know, wouldn't be surprised. Seismic pressure. We've already seen some volcanic eruptions. What was the latest one? there was a volcano that was spewing ash the other day. And so hopefully, people will be safe, but just to say that, I wouldn't be surprised if we had some major eruptions this year in Ring of Fire. You always want to be checking the Ring of Fire, like the San Andreas Fault in California, up the western spine of the United States coast, up through Alaska and around, down through the Asian, that whole coast is the Ring of Fire. That Ring of Fire also extends to Yellowstone. There's like kind of like a little offshoot of that ring. So there's an inroad there. So last year when we had all the eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn, we definitely saw seismic shifts there. Steamboat, was it called Steamboat? Geyser hadn't erupted in, I don't know, 32 years or something, and it started erupting. So we could be seeing more seismic activity there, perhaps, or in other places. So many different hotspots throughout the world: Indonesia, Vesuvius, Costa Rica, et cetera, et cetera. So, just to be aware that, that's another, manifestation. Oh, yeah, right. Never a dull moment. What I love to leave on a positive note here is, when we have this inauguration, is one thing too that the Uranus energy can represent is, look at this outrageous liberation and our value systems shifting. Venus ruling Uranus in Taurus, Venus ruling that. Well, here, look at Kamala Harris, a Black Asian woman in the second highest office in the land, one step from the presidency. Yeah. Like, how amazing is that, right? History in the making, a new beginning, something bold and dynamic and ingenious and forward thinking. And how exciting and inspiring is that, especially for girls and little girls who are Black and Asian, that can look at her as like a hero and go, wow, I could be president of this country. There's the path for me. Just like when Obama became president, Black kids everywhere were like, wow, it's real. The possibilities are here now, and they're real, and they can be realized now more than any other time in history. So for that, we're thankful that we have these new directions, and bold new directions that are inventive and innovative, and that unite humanity, that bring us all together. Regardless of our political spectrum, it's just about coming together and finding unity and joy in diversity. And so, yeah, just wanted to share that. All right, I think that's about it for now. Just a last one, January 28th, we'll have our full moon, and that'll be in Leo, right? The full moon's always in the opposite sign of the sun. So we have the sun in Aquarius, the full moon will be in Leo. But that's not for almost 3 weeks. So we can probably talk more about that later, but that will, the intensity will feel from January like 17th to 23rd, where things get really worked up. It'll be re-amplified again when we hit the full moon, because of course, full moons build energy to that. And since the sun's in Aquarius, again, a lot of dynamic change. I think we could be seeing, on a personal level, it's like, we think about Leo and we want to check our ego at the door. We want to be brilliant and generous and creative and sharing and exuberant and full of creativity, and bringing those qualities to the forefront, but while checking our ego, and so that'll be like our little, tip for the new moon. The full moon in Leo, 9 degrees of Leo. That'll be January 28th. So we'll definitely have a very full month. And so, yeah, that's all for now. Just wanted to share that with you. And I hope you found this useful. If you did, we love hearing from you. If you want to like, share, or subscribe, you can do so in the below with the little subscribe box. I'd love to hear from you. How are these energies manifesting in your life, and how we can share ideas and experiences that bring us together. So anyway, any questions or anything, you can always contact me, Irlianna, at starsoundastrology.com. And until then, just, hang in there, and let's all do our yoga and our practices, and staying sane, knowing that there's nothing that we can't move through. We came here for this moment. We incarnated for this time, in this very special time in our world evolution. So I bid you adieu for now. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSound Astrology. Thank you all for listening. Namaste. The light in me salutes the light in you. Namaste. Okay. Bye for now.